When I started my public life 12 years ago, I understood the media.
Imagine being the most famous woman in the world, loved by millions, yet feeling
might be interested in what I did, but I was not aware of how overwhelming.
Completely alone. Imagine having everything anyone could dream of, but
Eating disorders, whether it be anorexia or bulimia, show how an individual
still searching desperately for someone to simply hold you and say, "I love you,"
can turn the nourishment of the body into a painful attack on themselves.
What do you think then? What was your instant impression?
This was Princess Diana's reality in her final days. And what
Both of you. What do you think about Lady Diana?
Well, I remember thinking what a very jolly and amusing and attractive 16-year-old.
what happened next would shake the world forever. What if I told you that Diana
She was. And, I mean, great fun. And bouncy and full of life and everything. And, I don't know what you...
Diana's last romance lasted only 30 days. What if I told you that the night before
thought of me.
Pretty amazing.
Always happy and outgoing. Showed a great sense.
before she died, she was planning her return home to London, excited about her future? What if I
Humour and was very relaxed with the children.
I'm amazed that she's been brave enough to take me on.
And I
told you that her death wasn't just a tragedy, but something that nearly brought down the British monarch?
suppose in love.
Of course.
Whatever in love means.
Well, it
You can put your own interpretation.
Diana
Monarchy itself. Today, we're going to take you inside the final
remarkably calm, said to Camilla, "Look, don't treat me like an idiot."
chapter of Diana's incredible yet heartbreaking life. We'll uncover the secrets she kept.
I know what's going on.
I think the intention really was just to try and tell her story so that the world could
The love she found, and the devastating events that led to that fateful night in Paris.
understand the real Diana. Because remember, before the book came out, she was just seen as this rather demure and silent clothes horse.
This isn't just another story about a princess. This is the story of a
This attractive adornment to Prince Charles. And she really wanted to tell her side of the story.
Of all the ironies about Diana,
woman who changed the world, even in her final moments.
perhaps the greatest was this. A girl given the name of the ancient goddess of hunting was, in the end, the most hunted person.
By 1997, Diana had been living under the world's spotlight for over
Of the modern age.
Not a political figure. I am a humanitarian figure. And always have been and always will be.
15 years. She had gone from being a shy 19-year-old kindergarten
Not even I could imagine that they would take such a direct hand in her death, as seems to be the case. It would appear that every proprietor and editor of every
teacher to becoming the most photographed woman on earth. But behind all
publication that has paid for intrusive and exploitative photographs of her, encouraging greedy and ruthless individuals to risk everything in pursuit of
the glamour and royal titles, Diana was still searching for something that seemed
Diana's image, has blood on his hands today.
to slip through her fingers again and again. True love. After her divorce from Prince Charles became final in 1996, Diana was officially free from the royal family, but she was also more alone than ever. Her two sons, William and Harry, were away at boarding school most of the time. The palace had cut her off from many of her former duties, and despite being surrounded by staff and security, she felt incredibly isolated. Diana's butler and closest friend, Paul Burrell, later said that she would often tell him, "All I want, Paul, is for someone to put their arms around me and say I love you." That's not too much to ask, is it? These words give us a glimpse into the deep loneliness that Diana carried with her, even as millions of people around the world adored her. But Diana wasn't just sitting around feeling sorry for herself. In fact, some of her most important and impactful work happened during this period. She threw herself into humanitarian causes that really mattered to her. She visited hospitals, worked with AIDS patients when many people were still afraid to even touch them, and traveled to dangerous places to bring attention to serious problems. One of her most famous campaigns was against landmines. In 1997, Diana traveled to Angola, a country in Africa that had been torn apart by war. She walked through minefields and visited people who had lost arms and legs from stepping on these deadly hidden weapons. The pictures of Diana walking through those dangerous areas, wearing a protective vest, shocked the world. Some politicians back in Britain weren't happy about Diana's landmine campaign. They called her a loose cannon and suggested she was getting involved in politics when she shouldn't be. But Diana didn't care about the criticism. When reporters asked her about being called a loose cannon, she simply said, "I'm only trying to highlight a problem that's going on all around the world." During her trip to Bosnia, Diana met a little girl who had been badly injured by a landmine. The girl had gone into a field to get her brother's football and stepped on a mine that blew up and took both her legs. Diana sat by the girl's hospital bed and held her hand, even though they couldn't speak the same language. Later, when the little girl woke up, she told the nurse that she had just seen an angel. This is the Diana that the world fell in love with. She wasn't just a pretty face in fancy dresses. She was someone who genuinely cared about people who were suffering, and she wasn't afraid to get her hands dirty to help them. She would hold AIDS patients when others wouldn't even come near them. She would hug children who had been abandoned. She made people feel seen and loved in a way that no other royal had ever done. But despite all this meaningful work, Diana's personal life was still complicated. After her divorce, there had been rumors about different men she might be dating, but most of these relationships were either very private or didn't last very long. Then, in 1995, Diana met someone who would become incredibly special to her. His name was Hasnat Khan, and he was a heart surgeon working in London. The way they met sounds almost like something from a movie. Diana was visiting sick children at a hospital when she got into an elevator. Just as the doors were closing, someone put their foot in to stop them, and the doors opened again. There stood this handsome doctor, staring right at her. Diana later told Paul Burrell about this moment, saying, "I knew then that I would have a relationship with him. Our chemistry was so strong that I knew." For Diana, who had been hurt so many times before, this feeling must have been both exciting and scary. Hasnat Khan was very different from the other men Diana had known. He wasn't interested in fame or attention. In fact, he wanted nothing to do with the media circus that surrounded Diana's life. He was a serious doctor who cared about saving lives, not about being photographed with a princess. Their relationship lasted for almost 2 years, but it was kept completely secret from the public. Paul Burrell helped Diana hide this relationship, sneaking Hasnat into Kensington Palace in the back of his car, sometimes even hiding him under a blanket. Diana would have the chef cook dinner for 2, and they would spend quiet evenings together, away from all the cameras and attention. Diana even traveled to Pakistan to meet Hasnat's family. She genuinely thought this relationship might be the one that would finally bring her the happiness she had been searching for. Hasnat was kind, intelligent, and he made her feel normal in a way that she hadn't felt in years. But Hasnat Khan was also very aware of what dating Diana would mean for his life. He had seen how the media destroyed her marriage to Charles. He watched how photographers followed her everywhere, making it impossible for her to have any privacy. As much as he cared about Diana, he wasn't sure he could handle that kind of life. The pressure of keeping their relationship secret, combined with Hasnat's concerns about the media attention, eventually became too much. In early 1997, their relationship came to an end. Diana was heartbroken. She had truly believed that Hasnat might be her soulmate, the person she could finally build a real life with. After breaking up with Hasnat, Diana felt lost and hurt. She had put her heart on the line once again, only to have it broken. This is when Mohammed Al-Fayed, the wealthy owner of Harrods department store, invited Diana and her sons to spend some time on his yacht in the south of France. Mohammed Al-Fayed was a controversial figure, but he had been kind to Diana in the past. His invitation came at a time when Diana really needed to get away from London and all the painful memories there. So in July 1997, Diana accepted his invitation and traveled to France with William and Harry. It was during this trip that Diana first met Dodi Fayed, Mohammed's son. Dodi was a film producer who had worked in Hollywood. He was charming, generous, and he seemed completely captivated by Diana. Unlike Hasnat, who had been cautious about the media attention, Dodi didn't seem to mind being photographed with the world's most famous woman. After William and Harry returned to London to be with their father, Diana stayed on the yacht with Dodi. What happened next would become one of the most talked-about romances in history, even though it lasted only 30 days from beginning to end. Dodi showered Diana with gifts and attention. He gave her jewelry, watches, and expensive presents. He made her feel special and wanted. After the pain of losing Hasnat, Diana was ready to feel loved again, even if this new relationship was moving very fast. But Diana's close friends were worried. Paul Burrell could tell from their phone conversations that Diana wasn't completely happy. She complained that it was too cold downstairs on the yacht and too hot on the deck. She said she felt isolated because when she sent photos to the media, no one was responding to her. She wanted to come home to London, but the only way back was on the Fayed family's private jet, which meant going through Paris first. During one of their last conversations, Diana told Paul that Dodi had been very generous with his gifts. Paul, who knew Diana so well, warned her, "You know what's coming next, don't you? He's going to give you a ring." Diana seemed surprised by this idea, but Paul told her, "When he gives it to you, put it on the fourth finger of your right hand." This was Paul's way of telling her not to put it on her engagement finger, because he was worried that this relationship was moving too fast. On August 30th, 1997, Diana called Paul from the Ritz Hotel in Paris. She told him she would be coming home the next day, but she would be a little late because Dodi had some business to take care of for his father. Paul said it was no problem and that he would arrange everything for her return. This was the last conversation Paul would ever have with Princess Diana. What happened next has been studied, investigated, and debated for decades. On the night of August 30th, Diana and Dodi left the Ritz Hotel in Paris. They were trying to escape from the photographers who had been following them all evening. Their driver, Henri Paul, was driving at high speed through a tunnel called the Pont de l'Alma when he lost control of the car. The Mercedes crashed into a concrete pillar at 65 miles per hour. Dodi Fayed was killed instantly. Henri Paul also died on impact. Diana's bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones, survived but was badly injured. Diana was rushed to the hospital, but her injuries were too severe. At 4:00 a.m. on August 31st, 1997, Princess Diana was pronounced dead. She was only 36 years old. The news of Diana's death spread around the world in minutes. People couldn't believe it. This woman who had seemed so full of life, who had been photographed just hours earlier, was suddenly gone. The shock was overwhelming. Paul Burrell later described the moment he learned of Diana's death. At first, he heard that she had been injured and had broken her arm. Then, at 2:00 in the morning, he heard that her injuries were more serious. It wasn't until 3:00 a.m. that he learned the accident had been fatal. Paul immediately flew to Paris because he felt he needed to protect Diana one last time. When he arrived at the hospital and saw her lying on the bed covered with a white sheet, he couldn't believe she was really gone. He described how a fan near the bed was moving, and it made Diana's hair flutter, making it look like she was still alive. He took her hand and said, "Wake up, you're asleep, aren't you? Wake up." But of course, there was no response. Paul remembered something Diana had once told him about death. She believed that when someone dies, their spirit lifts from their body and hangs around for a while to watch what happens. So Paul talked to her as if she were still there, promising to handle everything the way she would have wanted. Back in Britain, the reaction to Diana's death was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. People began gathering outside Kensington Palace, Diana's former home, bringing flowers, cards, and teddy bears. What started as a few dozen people grew into hundreds, then thousands, then millions. The royal family was at their summer home in Scotland when they learned of Diana's death. Prince Charles had the terrible job of waking up his sons, William and Harry, to tell them their mother was dead. William was 15 years old, and Harry was only 12. Imagine trying to explain to children that their mother, who they had just seen a few days earlier, was never coming home again. The royal family's initial response to Diana's death created a huge controversy. They seemed to want to handle it quietly, as a private family matter. But the British people didn't see it that way. To them, Diana wasn't just Charles's ex-wife. She was the people's princess, and they wanted to mourn her publicly. For nearly a week, the royal family stayed in Scotland while the rest of the country grieved. The Queen didn't make any public statements. There were no flags flying at half-mast at Buckingham Palace. It seemed like the royal family was ignoring the massive outpouring of grief from their own people. The British media and the public began to turn against the royal family. People were angry that the Queen seemed more concerned about protocol than about acknowledging the loss of someone who had meant so much to so many people. There were even suggestions that the monarchy itself might not survive this crisis. Finally, under enormous pressure, Queen Elizabeth returned to London and made a televised speech to the nation. She called Diana an exceptional and gifted human being and acknowledged the extraordinary reaction to her death. But for many people, it felt too little, too late. The funeral of Princess Diana was held on September 6, 1997, and it was one of the most watched events in television history. More than 2.5 billion people around the world tuned in to say goodbye to the people's princess. The most heartbreaking moment came when Diana's brother, Earl Spencer, gave a speech that was both a tribute to his sister and a criticism of the way she had been treated. He talked about Diana's insecurity and her desire to do good for others. He promised that her family would protect William and Harry from the same pressures that had caused Diana so much pain. But perhaps the most powerful image from that day was of two young boys walking behind their mother's coffin. William and Harry, dressed in dark suits, followed their mother's body through the streets of London as millions of people watched and wept. The whole world's heart broke for those two children who had lost their mother in such a sudden and tragic way. Diana's death changed everything. It changed how the royal family interacted with the public. It changed how the media covered celebrities. It changed how people thought about fame and privacy. And it changed the lives of everyone who had loved her. In the years since Diana's death, we've learned more about her final days and the struggles she faced. We know that she was still searching for love and happiness. We know that she was excited about her future and had plans to continue her humanitarian work. We know that she was a devoted mother who worried constantly about her sons. But we also know that Diana's legacy didn't end with her death. The work she did to remove landmines continued and helped save thousands of lives. Her sons, William and Harry, have carried on her charitable work and her commitment to helping people who are struggling. The way she changed how people think about mental health, HIV, AIDS, and so many other issues continues to have an impact today. Diana's story reminds us that even people who seem to have everything can be struggling inside. It reminds us that fame and wealth don't automatically bring happiness. And it reminds us that sometimes the people who give the most to others are the ones who need love and support the most. The last days of Princess Diana were filled with hope and heartbreak, love and loneliness, joy and tragedy. She was a woman who had everything the world could offer, but all she really wanted was what we all want, to be loved and to feel like we matter. Diana's death was a tragedy that shook the world, but her life was a gift that continues to inspire people more than 25 years later. She showed us that real royalty isn't about titles or crowns. It's about how you treat people, especially those who can't do anything for you in return. If you found Diana's story as moving as we did, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear about the power of compassion and love. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories about the people who changed our world. Diana may be gone, but her legacy of kindness and humanity lives on in all of us.